the old man if he knew how big the desert was, and he said he thought he did. He told me the desert was as large as the architecture of thought, and as small as the universe within the eye of its smallest living thing. I asked the old man what he could teach me of the desert. He said he wasn't sure. But as we watched the shadow of wings sweep a canyon wall, he did say this: if you touch the desert with the tips of your mind, see it out of the corner of your heart, if you look deep within the desert's eyes, you will learn all there is of joy and sorrow and what it means to be alive. Why is it when faced with something we don't fully understand, our first impulse is to measure its dimensions with our mind, a scientific imperative? And so it is with the Chihuahuan Desert, least known and most puzzling of all North America's desert regions. It lies, they say, between Mexico's two great mountain ranges. On the west, the Sierra Madre Occidental, vast chaos of soaring stone. The older, more gentle Sierra Madre Oriental slumbers to the east. To the north, the desert embraces the Big Bend of Texas, part of southern New Mexico, and the hem of the skirt of Arizona. And then it reaches southward and upward into Mexico like a great inclined plane to San Luis Potosí, beyond which it rains. It seems there are no two maps of this enigmatic desert that are quite alike. Climatologists define its boundaries one way, botanists another, zoologists and geologists yet another and another. As I suspected he would, the old man said it didn't matter. The desert knows where it is, he said. In some ways, the Chihuahuan Desert fits the image of what a desert should be. A setting for bold jest, vast Saharan silences, as barren and apparently lifeless as the surface of the moon. But the old man said the desert hides its secrets well, and its most joyous secret is life. The Chihuahuan Desert is a carnival of serendipitous life. Just why the Chihuahuan Desert contains such an abundant population of unexpected living things has something to do with the uniqueness of the desert itself. For one thing, it's very high. So high, in fact, that it's sometimes covered with a counterpane of snow. And for another, the Chihuahuan is a youngster as deserts go. Once a woodland of juniper, pine, and oak, it's existed in its present form no more than 8,000 years. Unlike most deserts, The Chihuahuan is like a desert sea filled with islands, small pockets of space and life far different from surrounding forms. It's not a single natural environment, but many. As I followed the old man into this country of almost shocking contrast, I became aware of something rather remarkable about the life I began to see about me. Life did not seem, as the myths imply, a constant, cruel struggle against the forces of death. Rather, there was a curious and uplifting quality of functional harmony. The land is harsh, the rain infrequent, the sun a hammer pounding down, but all life forms are at home here. In myriad, marvelous ways, they've adapted to their environment, and in it they live triumphantly. The cactus wren is more secure nested in the fierce protection of cactus needles than he would be beneath the eave of a house in the suburbs. The roadrunner, a distant and comic cousin of the cuckoo, can fly but seldom does. He has met the challenge of running down the desert's abundant supply of lizards with his long legs. The javelina, or collared peccary, is far more interesting than his barnyard cousins and has established a delicate social order based on scent. Although he can see no farther than 3 meters, he's developed a rich repertoire of vocal sounds, at least 15 different calls, with which he apparently communicates with others in his group. The jackrabbit, with his huge ears that act as natural air conditioners, is also triumphant in the desert. In the Chihuahuan Desert is a species of whiptail lizard which has adapted to the environment in a most amazing way. There are no males, only females, who have achieved a means of initiating development of their own egg into an embryo without the aid of sperm. In essence, the females create exact Xerox copies of themselves. All desert life, to be successful, must seek ingenious ways to find, conserve, and utilize the desert's most valuable and scarce commodity, water. Consider the cactus. It has developed succulent stems for the storing of water. There are no leaves because leaves would allow too much moisture to evaporate. The green stems perform the function of leaves. The spines not only discourage animals, but they limit the free circulation of air and a resulting loss of moisture. The graceful ocotillo, which is in its own unique family, conserves moisture by dropping its leaves some 2 weeks after a rain. But there are mysteries here in the Chihuahuan Desert. Why are there forms of plant life here that exists nowhere else on Earth? Like lechuguilla, a plant that indicates you are in the Chihuahuan Desert region. Are they relics of a former population, or are they new adaptations of ancient forms? Where did the cactus come from? How did it evolve? It seems to have appeared quite suddenly, quite recently. But from where? Just when it seems you begin to understand the desert, along come questions to take that understanding away. I asked the old man about understanding, and he said, "Don't trust your eyes for understanding, for in the Chihuahuan Desert, there are plants that look like cactus, but are not. Creatures that look like stones, but are not. Insects that look like sticks, but are not. And wasps that are called ants, but are not. Things in the desert are rarely what they seem," the old man said. It was then that he revealed to me the complexities of the insects of the desert. And I began to be aware of the arrogance of my preconceptions. We tend to see and think and make judgments on a human scale. Although we might admit that other mammals possess intelligence or the ability to learn, we dismiss any sophisticated behavior on the part of insects as simply instinct. And so, there's a mystery here. In the Chihuahuan Desert, we see tiny creatures performing complex tasks, often performing several complex tasks simultaneously. Would it not be arrogance to write this behavior off with that word we often use to explain those things we cannot understand, that catch-all word, instinct? Consider the thread-waisted wasp. She brings to her burrow a caterpillar on which her larvae will feed. It is one of several burrows she is provisioning. Not only is the wasp capable of learning where the several separate nests are, but she brings the proper number of caterpillars to each nest. Just the right amount for the larvae to eat that day. No more, no less. After she's provisioned the larvae, she'll carefully plug the entrance, hide the burrow, and set out to find additional prey. How does she find the burrow again? Just one among thousands of similar hidden burrows. Almost certainly, she remembers key features of the terrain, landmarks to guide her home. And when she hides the burrow, she uses a small stone to tamp it down. Mystery. Does the wasp use a tool? A capability we normally only associate with the higher primates? South through a yucca forest, their grotesque arms raised in supplication, like the figures in a Mexican mural. Some seem ancient, but we can't be sure. We have yet to develop a method to determine their age. The hummingbird and the century plant are involved in a curious relationship. The hummingbird drinks the abundant nectar of the blossoms. Once a hummingbird has staked a claim to a particular plant, he will drive other hummingbirds away, but he will not drive away other birds coming to the plant for insects. Since they are not in direct competition, they are easy neighbors. And when the century plant dies, the ladder-backed woodpecker uses the plant for a nest. Nothing, the old man said, is ever wasted in the desert. The old man showed me a place as astonishingly unexpected as an oasis on the moon, Cuatro Ciénegas, another of the island mysteries of the Chihuahuan Desert. In this basin of thermal springs and pools and underground streams dwell life forms existing nowhere else in the world. Relics left over from a time when their surroundings were more hospitable. Beyond the marshes are the living dunes of Cuatro Ciénegas. Created by the winds that sweep this place, the gypsum often rises higher and higher upon the basin yuccas. To survive, the yuccas and the other plants rise with the sand, extending their trunks 30 feet or more above the desert floor to win the race for life with the dunes. By day, the wind sweeps the dunes clean, but at dawn, the signature of nightlife is everywhere. For at night, the dunes are alive with a pulsing celebration hidden from our eyes. The Rio Grande and the Rio Conchos are lifelines creasing the palm of the Chihuahuan Desert. And along these lifelines wander life forms of astonishing variety, from the tiny hummingbird to the soaring peregrine, that rare and most noble of falcons. Our eyes followed the flight of the falcon toward the mountains. Islands of stone they seemed. But then again, in the Chihuahuan Desert, things are not always what they seem. For within these desert mountains lay hidden grottos of unexpected beauty and serenity. We searched for the desert and found instead a miniature Shangri-La, green with fern and moss, even orchids, filled with the sound of thunderous solitude. Nearby, a family of zone-tailed hawks swayed in the mountain wind. It's believed that the zone-tailed hawk mimics the appearance and flight patterns of the harmless turkey vulture, a masquerade fatal to his prey. White-tailed deer nursed at the breast of the mountain. The old man said he remembered a day in his own lifetime when grizzlies and wolves wandered these mountains. But they fell victim to the desert region's most relentless predator, man. Among the survivors is the coyote. For half a century, he has been pursued unmercifully, poisoned, shot, trapped. But somehow he endures, even thrives. He has survived the pressure of predator man. But above, the peregrine is vanishing. I asked the old man if the future lay with the coyote or the falcon. Will the life of the desert endure, or will it vanish? He pointed to a machine moving through a veil of heat on a desert road. The future, he said, lies there, in the hands and hearts of men. The desert has a curious, almost mystic attraction for the wandering species we've come to call man. Its great solitudes seem to have a profound effect on his vision of himself and the world around him. It is as if truth and wisdom and understanding waited there. Yet, there's a paradox here, the old man said. We've never learned how to live gently with the desert. Unwittingly, we are agents of its destruction. Irrigation is upsetting ancient balances. The grizzlies and the wolves are gone. The peregrine is dying. This is the sadness of the desert, the old man said. The desert itself is in jeopardy. Chihuahuan silences, the patterns and rhythms of life are laid bare for our examination. One can sense that we are an integral part of all that we see. We are no greater nor lesser than the falcon, the wasp, or the mountains. The deserts and we are one. Its sorrow is our sorrow. Its joy our joy. Its survival, our own.